Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy Days, and you're about to watch Thorin rant for about 3 hours.
Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. Old McBlasty had a dynamite factory, Boomeo. Nothing to do with that, of course, but Boomeo, a service which enables you, whoever indeed you are, something you should probably be searching for yourself, know thyself. The sort of thing that could help you improve at Counter-Strike, assuming you put in the work. Not applicable in Connecticut. Now, you could be lounging around, soaking in the sun of fantastic esports plays, dreaming of what might be. If things go the right way, perhaps one day you'll be swimming in cash. Esports pools, a vacation from the mundane reality of your life. Thorin vs. Reddit, episode 11. Back on that CSGO shizzle. Start with this comment. It was in the thread where Moses was streaming and he ranted about the lack of in-game leaders in the North American scene and people not committing to kind of taking on this responsibility in this role, and the scarcity of that role in contrast to his day when he played, a decade and a half ago. And this comment had 13 points, and it says, well, C9 did his suggested strat of getting a Premier level in-game leader when they picked up Slemmy, and it failed miserably. I agree with him that it's shameful and a problem overall, especially in the NA scene, but it's not like it just has an easy solution. Now, this comment has 75 points, and it says, what the fuck? Picking up Slemmy was a great move. He gave the team a lot of structure and helped move the team forward before grabbing Orti. Do you remember what it was like before they got Slemmy when nothing was calling? So the interesting point about this is that while the original comment, I do think there's some validity to that. They did try literally what Moses just said. They got Slemmy, who was a guy who was a Premier level in-game leader, and they gave it a try and it didn't work well. But I don't think that's reasonably fair though, because you look at the team they had at the time. Stewie2K himself was still emerging as a player. Becoming the in-game leader, I actually think, allowed him to kind of really test the boundaries of where he was as an individual player. You find young talents, that's part of what the first couple of years are about, actually. They know they're good in a certain area, but then it's about, right, do I just apply that over and over again? Am I going to test if I can be good in this other area? I'm going to become more well-rounded, or am I going to become fantastically good at that one area there? What can I do? Can I shift up my role and have more impact with my strengths, but shore up some of my weaknesses? That's why people like Magisk Boy, Config, Kirby, you see these guys out there. Tarek's an obvious example, Mixwell. They come in and they have differing levels of success, but then the first few years, they're still searching for that identity as a player. It's not usually until a couple of years in, or a couple of different teams even sometimes, trying out different roles, that they really know what they're capable of as players. So I think when you consider Stewie2K was an absolute rookie at that point in time, it's a bit unfair to judge the Slemmy era of Cloud9 as harshly as if it was just an experiment that clearly failed, nothing good could come from it. I also think actually that in a sense, having Slemmy and having him just be this guy who's a Premier level in-game leader showed Stewie2K what it was about that style of play that he didn't like. And he's obviously someone who is in the school of thinking of a Shocks and of players like this, Olofmeister, Flusher, who prefer to have individual stars make the action which triggers what then the team does in response to that, which is obviously a very different style of play to what you'd expect from what Slemmy or other in-game leaders are going to bring to the game. That doesn't mean there's no value to that, because it's not like Slemmy's the only example, right? There are many others that would be good. Like, it doesn't have to be Premier level in that particular sense. There's other people out there you can give chances to, and some of them are going to make it, just as with actual players like Stewie2K. It's funny this guy's giving that example, because by this logic, we should just look at Stewie2K and go, right, well, he actually became arguably the best player in NA. So I guess all the players that are rookies that are just playing in Premier and are okay in Rank S or ESEA should just get all of them into top teams, because they'll all become like that because Stewie2K did. The experiment worked in that case. No, so just as Slemmy failing doesn't mean that all of them should be written off entirely. So likewise, Stewie2K succeeding doesn't mean all those guys would make it as star players who are at that level. Now, the guy saying that he thought that it did change some aspects of the team, I think correctly, but I don't know that he put in place that much structure that carried on into the latter days beyond that. I think he could have put some, because if you look at the timing, they had their most early success with Cloud9 in the first sort of 3 to 4 months after Slemmy's departure. So you could argue some of the structure remained, and then Stewie2K did his thing and did some other aspects, and then later on when they had to adapt the whole structure, this is one of the real problems that those loose teams have. They just keep running that loose style into the ground until it stops working. And then they think to themselves, because it's based so much on individual skill, oh, I just didn't headshot that guy. That's why we didn't do that. They don't understand when they're being read or when their style is countered by something else, or the current tempo of the game doesn't suit what they're trying to do for the players they have. And so they're not able to shift up on the fly, which is something that you'll see time and time again. Likewise, Fnatic, when they won those 6 tournaments with Dennis, that came in the months following Protonax's exit. So it's all well and good having Dennis come in and calling a looser style, but you do have some components of structure and how the team players that come and that are kind of carryovers from the products era. And when it came time to change and adapt, when we're talking like March to April of 2016, they couldn't adapt. They kept doing it. They just had diminished results. It kind of tends to be that way again and again. Likewise, G2 2016, this fantastic individual style based around Scream, based around Shocks, playing very individually. What happened? As you got past ESL 1 Cologne and you got into the autumn and the winter of that year, they were still good. They could still have maps that were as good as that. They weren't as effective overall. People got a read on them. People learned how to contain them a little bit, some of the superstars, and it just wasn't as effective a style anymore as the metagame of how to play shifted into a different era, and you had people playing, again, more tactically, or people playing a game where they could vary up the pace, whereas G2 couldn't. They had to kind of play at that one pace. So I feel as though it's not as simple and clear-cut as either people here are suggesting, actually. It's an issue where I think you have to give these guys a try, and this is the point Moses was making. Not because they're good enough now, not because they're going to be immediately fantastic and make your team better, as Slemmy didn't necessarily make the team as good as Stewie did later, but because by giving them a try, we're going to find some of them are going to end up being good. However many that might be, 1 out of 10. But the ones that are good are then going to give NA leaders, and then they have a higher ceiling and a longer career for what they can do as in-game leaders than these like forced in-game leaders like Stewie 2K, Shocks, etc., who Nico when he was in Mouse Sports, who do it just because they're so good. They're like, right, well, the only thing I can rely upon is at least I can get mine. So let's base the game around me getting mine to the maximum degree, and then from that, if you guys can do something, we have a chance to win. Instead, you can have a guy who can design a system like Glaive did in Astralis, like Carrigan did in FaZe, where it makes better use of those individual stars than they would make of themselves overall. And that's got a lot more future to it because that can adapt to the meta, and that can adapt with personnel changes as well, which is one of the things that the kind of star-led in-game leaders always suffer with. It's nearly always the case that they get 3 to 4 months in and they start to get the diminishing returns, which isn't always the case with the in-game leaders. People like the MSLs of the world sometimes their teams get better after 4 to 5 months with those lineups. So this comment had 99 points, and it was in a thread where Nellen Direct, or whatever his name is, the French guy, formerly of Vacam, who reports a lot of the transfers and has a pretty good track record, pointed out that he'd heard many bad things about Penta, and that's one of the reasons why people wanted to leave the org. It wasn't just that they got better offers elsewhere, Mouse Sports, FaZe, whoever it might be. It's that they were actually in a situation where the org itself had big problems. It wasn't just a lower org, it was also doing a lot of things that people thought weren't very good, like dodgy things with contracts and salaries and how they treated you, etc., and not always paying things on the invoice. So this comment has 99 points, and it's a guy who says, I'm not saying it isn't true. However, I find it odd that Crystal has been so long with the org then. Think he's nearly been 3 years with Penta. If I'd be in an org that treated me or my teammates like this, I really wouldn't stick around for long and would ask for a way out ASAP. Okay, so first of all, he's not saying it isn't true, but then he's pointing out that Crystal has been in the org for so long, and why is that then? So unless you can answer that question, he essentially is saying it isn't true. Don't know why he's even phrased it that way. Then he's saying, because he's been in the team for 3 years, well, I mean, if Crystal stayed in the org for 3 years, then none of those things can be true, right? Well, why? You haven't actually given a reason there. So what you're saying is people can't continue in bad circumstances because if the circumstances are bad. That they have to go, right, well, these are bad circumstances, so I'll leave. Why would they leave? To better circumstances, right? What options does Crystal, one of the worst players who gets to play Tier 1, Tier 2 Counter-Strike, and historically someone who hasn't been particularly good at any point in time, and hence why he's always the one left behind. What has he got in terms of better opportunities than Penta? Which team's looking to pick him up? Now, Sports, no. FaZe, no. Optic, no. NA Ogs, no. Rogue, maybe. Like, that's maybe the limit of what he could do. So really, what options does he have? Penta might be the best option he has. The fact that, by this guy's logic, why would Crystal stay? Well, by your own logic, everyone else leaves who's good and who has any level of talent and can get to any kind of org equal to or better than Penta. So if anything, using the same logic, actually this suggests that it's all correct, even though that's not really the way argumentation works. Then you've got to consider, That when he says, if I was a player, whenever people do this, their opinions are worth almost nothing because they have no clue what it's like to be a player. Like, first of all, what kind of player are you going to be? Some sick, super amazing player? Then why would you be in Penta in the first place? Now, assuming you're a player like Crystal, because that's what you're trying to do here. If I was him, this is what I'd do. I wouldn't stick around for long and would look for a way out. Who says he hasn't? Who says that that's not the best case scenario of what he can get? Also, who says that when you look for a way out and you go, oh, I don't like this the way I'm being treated, then they go, okay, see ya. We can get other tier 3 players and put them in our org. Now, where are you going? Killerfish, some shit, even smaller team? Okay, good luck. What's your point here? It's of no value. Right, this comment has 18 points. It was in the thread about Kiyashima not being told he was going to be replaced from FaZe until a day before. And this guy, the same guy, makes 2 comments. One of them has 18 points, one of them has 64 points. And what you learn about this guy is more about him and the way his brain works than Kiyashima or FaZe or any player like that. So in the first comment, the 18 points one, he says, regarding Kiyashima being kicked, not saying it needs to be face-to-face, but learning about it from a third party so soon to when it's going to happen is unethical and a dog act. Right? First of all, why is it unethical? What is ethical about the idea that when someone is fired from an organization, a company, that their teammate, their co-worker, has to be the one who tells them to their face? Even if the co-worker, by the way, made the recommendation that we want this guy fired and we want someone else better to the company are the ones who have to make that action possible to take place. They activate and actualize it. So why would the co-worker have to come to that guy face-to-face and say, I asked for you to be removed, you are being kicked? What would happen is that guy's boss would go to him, so a third party, someone at the company, and which, by the way, isn't a third party, actually. It's part of the company that he works for. Remember, it's his contract with the company that's no longer going to be the case of him being a starter. It's not the case that he just can't be friends with the other players anymore. No, it's not a third party at all. And his boss comes to him and says, we are removing you. The deal wasn't done until now, so I didn't tell you until now because I didn't know whether that deal would actually go through. But the deal's been done now, and we're removing you. What's unethical about that? Now, don't get me wrong, you don't like that. Don't get me wrong, Kiyashima probably doesn't like that and wishes it wasn't the case. Has nothing to do with ethics, though. There's no morality whatsoever involved with that there. And I don't know where you would get this morality from. What external source creates this morality or ethical impetus? And if it isn't that, if you created it internally, you have to explain why. Oh, you haven't. You're just a dog shit fan. Same fan, again, lots of opinions about people being kicked. Then talks about the fact that Shroud was cut from Cloud9. And he says, links to a video and says, apparently Jordan, nothing was cut from Cloud9. He says, apparently Jordan was going to bench himself and was aware of the kick, but Stewie went to his house and talked to him about it. Again, not Stewie's prerogative. Nothing to do with Stewie, actually. It should be Jack from Cloud9 going and having that conversation there. Don't know why Stewie would have to tell him to his face, oh, you know we're professional video game players. Well, I've got an opportunity to get a better professional video game player teammate to play with me in this professional video game that we play in competitions professionally for. Can I have your grace or your thanks, or maybe you could forgive me for wanting to get a better team? What's the problem here? Can he still not be friends with him outside of playing a team with him? Why does he have to tell him to his face? That's the least important part of being kicked, is when they tell you and how. The fact that you are kicked is the problem, right? You wanted to be on the team still. Or, in some of these cases, maybe you thought you were still good enough to be on the team. That's irrelevant to how they tell you. I mean, write it with a piece of shit on a piece of tree bark, roll it up, put it in a bottle, throw it in the ocean, let it go all the way around the ocean 5 times, get picked up by a little fisher boat, taken somewhere, put in a museum one day, and then Kiyashima comes along and then looks inside and then goes, oh, what's in this exhibit here? And he goes, I'm kicked from fate. What the fuck is this? I wanted to be in that team. But you're not, though. You've been kicked, though. Yeah, but the way they told me, though, not if they did, to my face. Told me to my face. Yeah, but you're still kicked, aren't you, Keo? How does that help you, though? You don't get to start still. No, but my face. Say things to my face. Anyone who speaks like that, by the way, that says nothing about Kiyashima. That says nothing about Shroud. That says nothing about Shui. Says nothing about Cloud9. Says nothing about FaZe. You know what it tells you about is the guy making this comment. And the guy making this comment actually sounds like emotionally he is on the level of a 12-year-old kid. Yeah, you wouldn't say that to my face, though, would you? Nah, society doesn't operate that way. We've got something called civilization. We've got, polite behavior. We've got a manner of behaving where you can just do things in a calm, rational manner because they make sense, and the other person can interpret it in a calm, rational manner. You don't have to go, yeah, you want to kick me from this team? You got to go through me first and say it to my face. What a child. Right, this comment has 13 points. It was in the thread where Sean Gares did a video, which is very good, on, I'll see if I can find it on YouTube, on like a really sick Astralis round. I think it was the one where they had Cash on T-side of Cash against SK at the major, where they used that really slow punish style. And this guy, 13 points, says, never thought strategies could be this sexy. Well, that's actually, unfortunately, a failing of new media, which is that new media, in many cases, because you have to have mastered social media, in particularly Reddit and Twitter, to really get it out there and get massive views, a lot of new media doesn't have resources behind it. People don't have big studios, they don't have professional video editors, they don't have all this talented people who can help them put together a video and then have a great setup so it looks very professional, and then have very crisp, polished editing on it all, and have the right action going out queued up as you say things. So actually, yes, this is really sexy in terms of like the way he breaks it down, his passion for it, and the way he explains the dynamics and the mechanism behind how the tactic works is really cool. But that's something that actually can be done even more so and on a much more regular basis. It just isn't done because people naively think with the current way they do it, oh, there's no money in that. No one's interested in seeing tactics. I think they are. In fact, what I've learned in life is that if something's done in an interesting and an entertaining and a compelling manner, people can be interested in anything. They can be interested in something really obscure, like the mythology of Assyria or something like that. If you have someone who explains it in a really bold, charismatic manner, and he ties it in with the right reference points, he doesn't treat you like an idiot, but he also kind of helps you aspire to be able to conceptualize it on a higher level by giving you some of the tools and taking you through the evolutions of thought that help you arrive there. You can go and you can understand very deep concepts, and it doesn't matter that you haven't studied this particular history of Assyria or you don't know much about quantum physics or whatever it might be. The idea can be really fun to learn and to hear about and to play around with in your mind, and that's something in Counter-Strike. And people need to put a lot more work in. I'm involved in a project now that's actually going to be doing some videos along these lines, including primarily with some great thinkers within the game of Counter-Strike. And one of the ways I want to do it is my approach is going to be, there are going to be short clips. It'll be like one tactic, one round, one play. But then by making it a short clip, so the simple concept is easy for someone to understand and grasp initially, then when we unravel it, we pick it apart and dissect it and show how all the little aspects work. We can go really deep, but it can only be maybe a 5 or 10 minute clip. But there's an almost near unlimited level of depth for that amount. You can go as deep as your understanding can take you, but it's on one concept. So I think that does combine the aspect of people, what they think are short attention spans. No, people are short attention spans for a bunch of bullshit that they can't see where it's going. When something's really well done, people can sit there for 2 hours and watch an awesome movie and at the end go, wow, I wish that had lasted half an hour longer. That's what it's going to be like when people really apply themselves to explaining how beautiful this game is. Like when I hear there's a fantastic channel on YouTube, okay, if you like the NBA and basketball, it's called, I can't remember the name of the channel, but the video series is called Attention to Detail. And what this guy does is he takes superstar basketball players and he'll show you like how they attack offensively. He'll show you like their signature move, then the couple of options they have out of that, and usually like the direct counter they have to when someone correctly defends their signature move. When you start to learn these things, it's going to seem very nitpicky and about footwork, but once you then watch that player play another game, you will see these movements in action. You'll start understanding his decision making, and then at that point, you're no longer just watching the aesthetic, athletic ability of the game, or in CS terms, the fantastic explosions and the crazy actions that look really kind of, they're stimulating, they're thrilling, but you'll understand the mental game that's going on, the chess match between players, individually, star players trying to get one over on the other when they're peaking a spot, how someone who's a lesser player defends a spot against someone who's a star and tries to get the drop on him or neutralize him or at least hold him back. Then you start to see how the in-game leaders are playing chess with the pieces on the board that are their players and positioning and taking over area, but sometimes not to directly lead to what's next, but just to force a reaction from the opponent that they can then punish. And you'll start to really see what's beautiful about this game, and the level of depth you will soon realize the more you put into this is nearly limitless. And that's why some of us can watch this game for 15 or more years and we never get bored of watching an SK Astralis level matchup where they've really gone in depth on that, because there's still always new ground to be broken. They're harkening back to great plays that they've done themselves and other teams have done, and then the evolutions of thought that have come through the years, through the decades, within how you think about the game, and the metagame concepts start to be brought out and manifest, and then you really see that it's not just a game about headshots. Headshots are the currency of the game, but how people maneuver themselves to then create those favorable situations from which headshots occur, that is Counter-Strike. That is what makes this a beautiful game. This comment has 29 points, and it was in the thread where it said that Boomeo, one of the sponsors of this show, had released all of their premium content, which you can go see now, like Fallen discussing like overpass tactics or fantastic content. And this guy, 29 points, says, "Thank Mr. Boomeo. Oh wait, I've been a subscriber for months and have now spent over $50 for something they're giving me for free." Except that's not what you were ever a subscriber for. Because remember, it said you're a subscriber, right? You didn't just subscribe for 1 month and download all the content. Now, first of all, you can't download the videos anyway, but let's imagine you could have done that, right? You could subscribe for 1 month and get it all, which is what's happening now when they give it for free, right? You don't subscribe at all and you get it all for free. That's the problem though, right? Because if you'd have done that at the beginning, you'd have got some of the videos, but you wouldn't have got all of them, right? Because they hadn't all been released. So each month you were subscribed, you got new videos, you got access to new videos. Yeah, you see the point there? You didn't get the new videos, you got access to them. So it doesn't matter that you were a subscriber in the past, right? If they shut Boomeo down, you won't have access to those videos anymore. But wait a minute, I paid $50. It doesn't matter, the site's not up. You paid for access during the months where you were paying. That's why it's a monthly fee. You're paying for access to get to those videos. And not only that, you might have seen the video 3 months ago, but you might go to it now and go, right, I want to watch it again. Oh, wait a second. That's also access, right? You still need the access to go back and watch it again. It's amazing how many people think of all services as if they were like limited products. And as though, because they bought this thing once, they are owed like a lifetime's worth of service and like updates, and somehow the value of that product should never drop no matter what the product. Well, I mean, again, this is like a child encountering the world. Like, this is, wait a minute, I pay. You can get a free trial at the gym, but I've been paid for the last 3 months. Well, aren't you in shape though? Didn't you go to the gym for the last 3 months? Yeah, but no, this guy can go for free. It's like I shouldn't have paid for the last 3 months. Yeah, but you wouldn't be in shape then, would you? But free, but I paid. You can just see the wheels turning, can't you? Or not. Or more like getting caught on like a fucking rusty, and you're like, starts to back up. Fucking white fluids coming out of his ears and nose. Error. And then someone comes along, pops another fucking 10 euro cent piece in the back of his brain. Performing reinitiation of moron. I must shit post. Brilliant. This post has 104 points, and it was in the thread also about Boomeo releasing the content, and it says, is a reply to the original guy. There's 104 points. It says, "Thanks, man, genuinely. People like you made it possible for the rest of..." Oh, this is in response to actually someone from Boomeo. "Thanks, man, genuinely. People like you made it possible for the rest of us to enjoy the current service. The education aspect of the game should be available for all." It was. Anyone who paid the monthly fee had access to it. Now, presumably, the implication of the way that he said this, because he's saying, like, thanks, the fact that you guys paid for it made it available for us all to enjoy it, and this should be available for all. No, doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Because you know why? It costs money to have a website. It costs money to sponsor huge pro gaming teams who make thousands a month and therefore will only do things by getting paid a lot of money to come and to take part in videos. Oh, to make those videos, by the way, you need cameras and you need a studio set up and you need hardware, and then you need to pay someone to edit those videos, and then you need someone to maintain the website, and then someone to promote it and to do marketing, and then you need to sponsor influencers like me to get people to know about your service, which already has all the great products, but people don't know about it yet, and then people have to go there, and then they have to sign up through it, so then you have to build in an infrastructure of how they sign up and how they maintain their subscription, and then you have to have people on hand to deal with that when there's problems with that. You need a whole company and a whole infrastructure in order to relay this education. And why should that be available to all, presumably for free? Like, where is the benefit, the impetus, the incentive for someone to do any of that if they don't make any money? Finally, just on a personal level, right? Imagine the person, remove all the infrastructure. Imagine Fallen, right? So Fallen makes a guide of how to play on Overpass because his team's sponsored by Boomeo and he gets paid as a result of it, either from his team's salary, and therefore he does the sponsor works that they then have the money to pay his salary. He then creates these videos because he has an incentive himself. So he benefits somewhere along the chain of effect. Now, why should he create that video for free for you? Even if there was no infrastructure aspect, what's the impetus that he must teach you how to play the game and how to improve at the game? Why? He put in his own hard work to learn. Yeah, he learned from other people, but he presumably learned from them because there was a benefit to them, like they liked him as a person, or they respected him as an individual, or they thought he was worth having conversations with. What has you, a random scrub none of us ever met, done that means that you deserve to have Fall and teach you the game for free? Nothing, right? How entitled random shitters are in the world. You can always tell someone, right, who's never accomplished anything, never been involved in the mechanism of making money and creating something, because they always think everyone else's hard work should be done for free and just at their whim, and they should be given everything and they're entitled to everything. But meanwhile, if they were to go to their job and find out they were getting a pay cut of 10%, they'd be complaining all day long. Or if they were to go and they were to pay for a sandwich and they thought like it wasn't as good as it had been built, they'd be going, I paid $10 for that. Suddenly, their time and their efforts and things they consider valuable, like their money given to others, are incredibly valuable. And they don't think that you should just be given whatever and that everyone just is entitled to everything. You can always see that way. Again, it's a comment that says more about the person than it does about what they're commenting on. This comment has 21 points. It was in the thread where it said that immortals are in turmoil and a trio of them have asked to leave. This guy says, I remember Elige speaking Portuguese on stream, pretty fluent. He also expressed how much he loves Brazilians. Now, while that could indeed be the case, he's a very intelligent guy, and I could certainly believe that maybe Portuguese is a language he chose to learn. The fact that he says he loves Brazilians, yeah, well, remember, he plays for Team Liquid. And so because Team Liquid were involved in a scenario where someone who isn't in Team Liquid kicked out the wire going into a PC, and that caused someone to crash, and then the rules of the tournament actually said that the tournament admins had to decide who got to restart, but the tournament admins were bitch-made, and so instead decided to force Team Liquid, particularly Hiko, the captain, to decide whether or not to restart. And since he said, well, isn't the rules to do that, I'm not doing it, and therefore got death threats from Brazilians and had to have bodyguards when he went to a tournament in Brazil, I wonder why someone on Team Liquid would be like, I love Brazilians, and then saying all shit in Portuguese to kind of big them up. Yeah, it's weird that, isn't it? And by the way, this is something that's never been revealed, but fuck it, it's too late now, right? It wasn't the case that in the end it was resolved that because the owner of that LAN tournament said, but actually it wasn't in the rules, it was up to the players to decide, just because he lied publicly, because that was the way the wind was blowing and he wanted to be politically expedient, doesn't mean he was telling the truth. When, from my investigations, it absolutely was not the case in the rules, that was it. What happened though is Team Liquid people stopped responding publicly because within their org, the policy they decided to take was just to let the matter lie and just say, enough damage has been done on all sides. Let's just leave it. Let's forget about it. We're not going to be in this situation again. I don't want you to address any of this publicly. And so they didn't, even though they were absolutely in the right. And all those Brazilians, including Luminosity, were absolutely in the wrong. And all those fans who talked shit about them and they gave death threats were fucking pathetic pieces of shit who knew nothing about the situation, yet behaved as though they knew everything. So this one is a thread, the same thread. It was about the players potentially leaving. And this guy, 26 points, says, KNG carried hard at the major and wants more skill, because that was what someone else had said. He didn't carry anything. And I wish people would stop saying that. Right? First of all, when people say carry like that, they don't literally mean that he carries and everyone else does nothing. They mean that he did the bulk of the heavy labor. That is an understood implicit meaning of that slang saying. It doesn't mean he carried and everyone else was pure shit. No, it means he was the main reason why they did well. Then this guy responds and he says about the rating, etc. Because first guy tries to imply that because the rating was vaguely similar, but it wasn't identical. Like some people had 1.12, and then other people had like 1.03, and he's like, well, similar enough. I don't think you understand. The differences in those 0.1, 0.2 are massive in the game, especially when you talk about over 0.1 difference. But anyway, he's like, it's basically the same. So this guy responds 6 points. Rating tells very little. KNG and Hen 1 picked up all the difficult kills and were often entrying. Carry is probably taking it too far, but he was definitely their most important player. So obviously the lateral, what this guy says, absolutely what I agree with. But this idea that like rating tells very little, that's a key point. This guy doesn't get it when he replies. The original guy replies 25 points. Actually, rating 2.0 takes into consideration entry frags, killing sprees, clutches, and a whole lot more than you just said. The whole team was at the same level, stop overhyping one player. No, because first of all, he's using the fucking rating for all the players in the entire tournament. So he's ignoring who did well in the harder matches, who did well later in the tournament, who did well on particular maps that they don't even play as a team and therefore don't have strong positions. He's taken out all the meaningful context to tell you how well someone played and how important they were for the team. And he is going, oh, since 1.12 isn't that far from 1.09, that means that both players were just as good and nobody played better than anyone. Stop overhyping the other players. How about start fucking learning the game? You haven't addressed a single piece of context in 2 comments of any value, but all the Brazilian fans, of course, have upvoted you. This comment had 951 points. It was in the thread, same one about Immortals, and it said, damn, from grand final of a major to on the verge of disbanding. Shit's crazy. Neither team in the major final is going to keep their lineup. Right, yes, I agree. In terms of like the sheer shock of it, it is kind of crazy that these 2 teams in the grand final of the major, including the champion, aren't going to keep the same lineups. But when you look at the context of those 2 teams, it makes a lot of sense. And in fact, bravo to both organizations that they at least understand that you can't just keep identical lineups and expect anything close to the same results. Like Gambit didn't even get out the group stage at DreamHack Summer before the tournament, had a whole bunch of online tournaments where they were absolutely dog shit. They even said in their scrims and boot camp for the major, they were losing all the time. They were already on the verge of breaking up. They happened to have the best possible result, but the fact that they then broke up shows that it just wasn't going to continue on. It wasn't reasonable. There's never been a team in history that won the major that was like that was so terrible before and had no chance to win and hadn't even shown any signs of being that good, and then were in a position where they already planned to break up and then won like the World Championship. Never happened before. So it's extreme circumstances, therefore extreme outcome, extreme response to the extreme circumstances. Likewise, Immortals were very close to not even making the major. Then at the major, they got all the way to the final without actually playing any elite teams, anyone who was good in the tournament, and then they lost the only match they played against a team who'd played really well in the tournament in the final to Gambit, and therefore some of the players... Remember, by the way, they didn't even initially want this lineup in Immortals. KNG was not their original player. It was Horby we were going to get. And so some of the players decide, oh, maybe we need different players or 6-man lineup, and they change it up. No, that's actually smart. Both of those teams, we've never had a major like that where the 2 teams in the final were just fluke teams. Right, this has 62 points, and it was in the thread where Steel was dropping dime on Shazam being a piece of shit. A lot of those stories, by the way, can corroborate. So... 62 points, it says, I feel really sad to see Esquires attached to Shazam and defending him. Esquires used to be a nice guy, but I'm worried that he is associating with a bad crowd now. I remember when Esquires associated with drug/stoners like Nothing, but that is okay because Nothing is a friendly personality. But Shazam always seems always toxic personality. Be careful, Sean Gares. Right, first of all, this first part, where it's about how Sean Gares associates with a bad crowd now. I don't really know about that. He just plays in a team with someone who's done some dodgy shit. It's not like Shazam's like the bad kid in school. Like, you know, come on, Sean, sniff this glue, man. What are you? Fucking half a pussy or some shit? Get this shit down here. And then you know what? After this, we're going to go and throw rocks at old fucking Mr. Simpson's house. Break that motherfucker's windows. You know, he's not doing any of that shit, is he? He's just playing in a team with him and did some stuff years ago. Then when he puts that part about, I remember when Sean Gares associated with drug/stoners like Nothing. Right, first of all, the fact that someone smokes weed, Nothing in this particular case, years in the past, don't think really means that he's hanging around with a bad crowd or associating with bad people. And what's funny is, somehow, doing drugs is implied to be a bad thing, but then the fact that Nothing's a friendly personality makes it all okay. So, you know. Apparently you can do anything that you consider like immoral or bad, but as long as you're a cool guy, yeah, it's fine then. Just hang around with you. And then Shazam always seems like toxic personality. Be careful, Sean Gares. Well, I'm sure he'll take your words to heart. They seem very insightful. So you sure seem to know a lot about these people and have a very strict ethical code and moral compass, which in many ways we could all learn by the light of your insight. Oh wait, you're just a random shitter who got 62 points smart Reddit. So this comment... This is amazing. 883 points. It was in the thread where FaZe acquired Guardian. And he quotes where they in the official comment they say, we will find consistency again. And his reply, and 883 points. He says, made semi-finals or better at 5 of 6 lands they have attended with Nico. Implication there being, how could they find consistency again? In 5 of 6 lands, they made semi-finals or better. Yeah, they did. Yeah. So I agree. So in those 6 tournaments, let's look at the chronology, shall we? So in the first 4 tournaments, they made the finals. Fantastic consistency. In the 5th tournament rather, they made semi-finals. So semi-finals or better in 5 straight tournaments. A little bit more inconsistency, but still very consistent in terms of good placings. At the 6th LAN, the last LAN before this move, they went out in last place and didn't win a single game. Now, I don't know how much you know about consistency, okay? But going from making minimum semis to having last place and winning 0 maps, that's actually, over 6 tournaments, it's not insane inconsistency, but tournament to tournament, that's pretty inconsistent, actually. That's showing a really bad sign of inconsistency, and that's such a terrible result that you would look at that result separate to the other ones. Because, yes, since you were always making the final, right, something's working here. We can trust that next time we have a chance to make the final again. Oh, still got semis, so some things are still working. Last place, oh, maybe things have gone drastically wrong. Maybe something's broken in the team. Maybe we have to completely fix it or go another direction because it's not possible necessarily to rewind the clock and go back to making the finals again. Maybe that's the case. Hence, they're looking to find consistency again. It didn't say we will find consistency. Your comment would be banging. The 883 points wouldn't just be cretin currency if he'd said, we'll find consistency. What do you mean? 5 out of 6 tournaments, you had some consistency. No, we'll find consistency again because they've just failed to have the consistency they had. They lost their consistency. They had the worst possible result you could actually have at the most important tournament of the entire year for them. And therefore, they want to get back their consistency. They want to find consistency again. Why do people actually comment on things that they don't? It's one thing if you just disagree. You have a different philosophy, you take things a different way, but he's actually read English words and not understood even what the meaning of the words is. And he hasn't even stopped to think, oh, these people talking to me, maybe they have some level of human intelligence, so what did they actually perhaps mean by this? He's just gone, haha, if I ignore one of the words, which I will now quote, what you said is stupid, idiot. It's like, yeah, but you ignored one of the words, and that's not what I meant. Yeah, but by doing that, I make you the idiot. No, you're the idiot. You ignored the words. You didn't understand what he was saying. This comment has 64 points, and it's in the thread. It was an article about the problems Godsent was having. And this 64 points, it's talking about Pronax. It says, the meta has surpassed teams relying on an IGL, which only skill is calling strats. Nowadays, an IGL has to be able to hold his own against anyone, right? 2 things. The first sentence, the meta has surpassed teams relying with an IGL whose only skill is calling strats. Then how do you explain how North, a team who at most have 1 top 10 player, are able to consistently be a top 10 ranked team and make top 8 of tournaments and sometimes make deeper runs? How do you explain that? If their leader's total, their in-game leader MSL, objectively is a fragger, is shit. He doesn't have a skill beyond calling strats, but they routinely place pretty well for a team without massive firepower. Then you've got to consider, Gambit just won the major. Zeus does not have fantastic fragging. He has many games where he might have like a 0.6, 0.5, but he just won the major, the world championship. He can't hold his own against anyone. Can't hold his own against players in his team. Now the idea, it's one thing if you just said, nowadays in-game leaders have to be able to frag a bit more. That'd be like it'd be debatable, but that's a reasonable perspective, and it's just an opinion on what you think is ideal for the meta. It wouldn't reflect reality. But to say that an IGL has to be able to hold his own against anyone, right? Pick the best fragging in-game leader that you can find. And I don't mean someone who's actually not a very good in-game leader. The strats aren't very good, like Stewie2K or Nico in the past or Shocks. No, you have to pick an actual in-game leader who's got good strats. And remember, because that's what you're implying, it can't only be calling strats. They've got to have good strats and good fragging. So I'm guessing you'll probably pick someone like Fallen, right? Now, Fallen can't hold his own against anyone. Could he hit his peak? Perhaps. And he is an outlier. He is the extreme outlier. You go look at the teams that have won majors, that have won big tier 1 tournaments. Their in-game leaders, the ones that can call strats, can't hold their own against anyone. Can they hold their own against the worst players in other teams? Maybe. That's also because a lot of the teams have a player like them. Therefore, the disadvantage evens out. That's something people never stop to think about, right? Since so many of the good teams that have good strats have in-game leaders that aren't as good fragging, they are not at a big disadvantage because the other teams are like that. But wait, Thorin, what about the teams who have superstar players I mean, none of them really have the extreme of every position, but good fraggers at all positions, but not a very good in-game leader. You've just solved your problem, haven't you? Yes, they will gain an edge in fragging, but they will have a disadvantage strategically and as adapting. Whatever advantage you get, you give up something elsewhere, except in extreme cases like Fallen, who is an ultimate outlier on that graph, that chart of all the in-game leaders who had good skills and good tactics, and therefore could go against anyone. Now, this was a 212 point comment, and it was in a thread that was me talking about how first place at TI7 is like $10 million, and we've only had that in something like 11, no, worse than that. We've only had something like 5 million over like the 11 CSGO majors. And this guy with 212 points says, well, that's why Dota 2 community kicked out Thorin. He is a drama queen that is more interested in hearing his own voice. Right, so the Dota 2 community kicked out Thorin. So the implication was I was in the Dota 2 community. When? I mean, he's got 212 points, so people think this is real. When was I in the Dota 2 community? I've never been involved in Dota. Never been involved in that community. I've actually never, I don't think I've ever written a news post even about Dota, maybe. Maybe I've written the odd one for like SK Gaming 7, 8 years ago. Never been part of the community, never attempted to. Never gone and posted my own work on Reddit there. Never been involved in threads over there. What I did was, I've made videos about Dota 2 that were on my YouTube channel. And the interviews I've done have been wildly successful. So definitely haven't been kicked out of that scene. I could do any of them tomorrow and get 80, 90,000 views. I've done videos about Dota 2. By the way, funnily enough, all of those did pretty well in terms of views. So haven't been kicked out in that sense. What happened was, people in Dota 2, not me, in the community, took my videos, put them on the Dota 2 subreddit, and some of them, I'll emphasize only some of them, got downvoted. Now, the ones that got downvoted, by his logic, that's them kicking me out of the community. No. In fact, the great thing is, because my YouTube channel now has got successful in terms of subscriber retention, I now no longer even need the Dota 2 subreddit. So I'm actually going to start doing more videos now. I didn't do as many before, because first of all, some topics I just wasn't that interested in talking about. And secondly, the views wouldn't be as big, for example, as League of Legends. So if I'm doing work in a game that's not my main game, I would mainly hedge myself over to League of Legends for that. It would get more views. Now it doesn't matter. I can do Dota 2 videos anytime I want, and I'll do them soon. So by his logic, I'll be back in the Dota 2 community, so they can just kick me out again, right? Oh wait, they can't stop me uploading videos to my YouTube. Oh wait, they can't stop people on my YouTube watching those videos. Oh wait, it almost seems like I'm not in the Dota 2 community at all. And this is a mentally ill individual who thinks that this is actually the TV show Survivor and they have voted me off the island. It's weird because I'm not on an island. You can't vote me off and I can still do anything I want, including making Dota 2 videos. Funny thing is, around the time that idiots like this think they kicked me off the Dota 2 community, I had really prominent, very famous personalities and pro players in Dota 2 who were asking me, like, do you want to be part of a podcast we could do for Dota 2? Like, we'd really love it if you like helped us. You could be the host, and like, it doesn't matter how much Dota 2 you really know, like, we'll join in and you could be like the ideal person to provoke discussion. I had event organizers like, hey, we want to put you on this Dota 2 desk, etc. If anything, I could be 10 times more into the Dota 2 community than any of these scrubs could ever be. And I wouldn't be removed. I would be wildly successful. I choose not to be. Dota 2 is a game I watch for fun. In general, I don't have that much content I want to create about the game. Although I agree, there is a lack of my style of content, sadly. But then again, that's because only I can make my style of content. You know, other people have to make their style. Right, this comment has 548 points. And it was in the thread about Angel and Electronic potentially joining Na'Vi. This guy says, very highly upvoted, let's hope this super team, which is what Na'Vi would have been potentially in the Ice region, isn't Astana Dragons 2.0. Now, I actually feel like Astana Dragons is a team that's been really badly done by. People have really looked at that team and they think, because it eventually became Hellraisers and wasn't very good at that point in time, they think it was always shit. It wasn't. Astana Dragons came around at the time when NIP, remember, it was in the autumn of 2013, NIP were the best team in the world. They beat NIP in 2 best-of-3 series. At the time, nobody was doing that, but they did it. They beat Fnatic pre-Pronax a bunch of times. They beat Na'Vi, who was like a top 5, top 6 team, numerous times. They had top 4 finishes at 3 big international tournaments. They were top 8 at the first major and were actually upset, and otherwise I think would have made it to the final and played NIP there. They were actually a pretty good team for a bunch of months, like 3 or 4 months, and they had some big placings. And for the CIS region, that was a big deal. So I don't know why people would make out like this is like a failed team. Na'Vi would fucking love those results right now with Electronic and Angel if he had indeed joined. Why do people... You can always tell when someone wasn't around back then, because they'll always say something like, Existence has never won a tournament. So, You do know, like, by the end of, like, 2013, he was one of the most decorated champions in all of CSGO. Like, he was the name behind all the NIP people, and no one else was with him. It was him right after Freiburg, Exist, Get Right Forest. He won fuck tons at that point in time, which is when we all refer to him as being the best. Now, this was a 15-point comment in a thread about Guardian, talking about how if he changes, it'll be his own accord and he wasn't kicked. And this guy says, God, Zeus would be an absolute idiot if he went back to those unthankful fuck faces of Na'Vi. He is not good enough to play with us. Get fucked, shitheads. Well, first of all, how you like dem apples, motherfucker? Tastes delicious, don't they, that apple pie? Because he's back in Na'Vi, and he's fucking loving it. And you know what? By this logic, he said to Gambit, you're not good enough to play with me. By your own logic, that's what he's saying to them. So should Zeus get fucked as a shithead for daring to leave Gambit and leaving them out after they won a major? Oh, no, wait a second. We're not talking about how a 13-year-old American girl from the Valley thinks about the politics of a pop group and a player that left and who said he doesn't think this other boy band's as good. We're talking about human adults in a competitive discipline who are making business decisions and defining the rest of their careers. Like, the idea that they're unthankful. He wasn't the in-game leader at the time. He wasn't a good player at the time. In fact, if you look at what Zeus did in Gambit, it's fairly clear he had to learn some hard lessons, tool up some of the areas he'd become lax in, and rediscover himself as an in-game leader, which he also did with Kane, who was a coach of Gambit, who wasn't with him in Na'Vi. So none of the tools were there to get Zeus back to where he is now, which is why he's done this return to Na'Vi in all his glory, and it's going to be a fantastic time. And now Na'Vi can appreciate something he wasn't giving them before, and he can appreciate a respect that maybe he wasn't getting at the end from them. It's only a child would think of it like this way. Get fucked. Fuck you. Unbelievable, isn't it? This comment has 35 points, and it's where there was a thread saying that the next major will be held in 2018. And it said, this is the old argument that people make a million times, I've addressed it myself, that they don't need to work on CSGO or make it a bigger game or even grow the game. And this guy says, and you always contrast it to Dota, and the fact that Dota has competition from Heroes of the Storm and League of Legends and all the rest of it. So what this guy says is, what is the incentive for them to work on CSGO's growth? Firstly, no other FPS comes even close to comparison with CS in the esports arena, whereas Dota 2 actually does have competition. Hence, Valve works on it more than CSGO. Now, I addressed this in my video about crowdfunding. The simple answer is this. Why would they only be competing against each other in their own genre? Like, what would be an incentive for them to work on CSGO's growth? Well, as the game grows, they get more mainstream attention, they get more money into the game, which provides a bigger ecosystem, which will allow them to maintain their player base longer because more people are interested in more ways watching the game, following the game, playing the game, etc., than just playing for fun in a game that didn't have an esports scene. Secondly, they make more money. They make a lot more money for very little investment. Thirdly, they're then in a position where CSGO can last years and years longer. The golden goose, which is laying golden eggs, continues to live longer by it being fed, and you continue to get more golden eggs. There's no point going, well, I've already got some golden eggs out of this goose. Why not I just leave it as it is? What's the point in making things better? Oh, wait a minute, what's that? Someone has got an idea as to how to make the goose lay twice as many golden eggs. What would my interest be? No one else has got a golden goose. Yeah, but you could have all the gold in the world and run the whole fucking thing, couldn't you? I don't really understand the logic. Let's use this guy's same logic for every other business in the world. Amazon's already the biggest bookseller. Why bother investing into other areas and building out their service even further? Why reinvest the money? Just keep the money, and if anything, don't reinvest or try to build out. Just keep running at the same level. Oh wait, then Jeff Bezos wouldn't be the richest fucking man in the world by having taken over all these different areas, made them all obsolete, exceeded so many of them, and made the profits and the revenue, rather, the turnover, massive for Amazon, and made it ridiculous that his personal salary is fucking bonkers. Oh, there was some massive incentive of satisfaction of accomplishing something, the challenge of trying to do something new, making your product even better, and making fucking near unlimited amounts of money. Wow, no real incentive there, is there, Jess? Jeff, you've wasted your motherfucking time, mate. No one's competing with you. Also, it's not, as I mentioned in the video, it's not competing with just its other game. Everyone who plays games is spending money and is playing different games. They're not sitting down going, My name is Jeff, and I will only ever play MOBA games, therefore only show me the MOBAs. I can't experience other marketing, and I will only ever play this one MOBA for the rest of my life. No, people play multiple games. People who play Dota could come and play CSGO. That can happen. They might lose interest in Dota. People who play all these games are just consumers with money that is out there that you can get if you're a good game developer and you do the right work and you build out the game and make the game better. You will attract new people to play the game. Again, why do people act like they're experts on industry when they don't appear to be experts on any form of industry that has ever existed in human civilization? So this one has 42 points, and it was in the thread about E-League deciding to uphold Valve's lifetime bans against the XI by Power guys. This guy says, 100% right decision in my opinion. I really liked Dazed & Co., but the mistake they made is by far the worst thing you can do to the community. In what way is it the worst thing you can do to the community? I can think of some things that are worse. You could steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from the community. You could fraudulently advertise gambling websites that you rig and that you actually own and pretend like you just think they're really cool products you're endorsing. You could literally use cheats and cheat in multiple games, maybe even at majors, and cheat other top competitors out of their big matches. I don't think throwing what was essentially a meaningless online game that not that many people even bet on anyway is the worst thing you could do in the community. And since it's not the worst thing you can do in the community, it doesn't necessarily require the worst punishment you can have. And the worst punishment you can give someone in Counter-Strike, in terms of Valve, is to ban them forever. Now, you could say, yeah, you could take them to court, etc. But that's not really about the game, though. You ban them access to playing the game at a competitive level. That's about the worst thing you can do. Yeah, it's not really the worst thing that anyone could have done, right? Again, it's this ridiculous, like, Puritan morality that's being forced on other people again. So let's have a look. This comment had 226 points, and it was in the thread about Immortals playing Virtus Pro in the semi-final of the Krakow Major. And it said, Gambit is way better than that. They'd be top 5 if they actually played any LANs recently. See, it's weird that they'd be top 5 if they actually played any LANs recently. Because at DreamHack Summer, they couldn't even get out the group. They lost 2-0 to Fnatic in the group stage. Couldn't even get top 4. That was a LAN, and they didn't even make top 4 there. What elite teams were there at that tournament? Oh, just SK. So at a tournament that featured one top 5 team in the world, they couldn't even finish top 4. Sounds like they're not top 5. Then you look at other tournament online play, absolutely terrible. You look at the reason why they don't get invited to those big LANs. Here's a little secret for all you people who are Gambit fans. The reason Gambit doesn't get invited to those big LANs is not because Gambit doesn't have that many fans. Now you're going to go, whoa, Thorin, yeah it is, because remember, it was between them and Cloud9 for ESL1 Cologne. Cloud9 got invited because they've got a much bigger fan base. Oh yes, in that extreme circumstance where you have two teams who've done fuck all at LAN for months and months, haven't had any really big placings. Gambit had like the decent placing overall at that small tier 2 DreamHack Austin, but then they didn't do well at Star Series, for example. Teams that don't have many good placings, yes, then someone like ESL will go, right, well, these two teams don't have very good placings. I don't have to invite them on the basis of competition, so I'll invite the team that's got like 10 times more fans. That just makes business sense. If Gambit had won Star Series and they'd made it to the top 4 at DreamHack Summer, then you know what? They actually very likely would have been invited purely on the basis of results. There would have been no reason for them to even be contrasted against Cloud9. In fact, they might have got invited instead of like an Optic or someone. That really could have happened. Now, in the scenario where they don't have any results, therefore they're not top 5 and they're not producing top 5 results, yeah, then they might not get invited to the LAN. So the idea that they're way better than that exists only in this guy's mind. That's it. That's the only place in the whole universe that exists as a concept. Because the actual reality doesn't show us that. And part of the reason why they don't even get to play some of the LANs is because they haven't been able to show a track record of being as good as this guy claims. Also, you look how many ranked series they won with that lineup over like a 9-month span or something. It was laughable. It was something like one like opponent who was ranked ever that they beat their best of 3. And what's funny is people go, yeah, but wait a minute, they beat G2 at DreamHack Austin. Yeah, they hadn't been ranked yet. That was their second ever LAN. Do you understand how rankings work? Rankings show that someone's got a basis of play over the last 3 months that's good, of individual wins, of placings. Then they're ranked. Then they're a good team. We've got them qualified as this is a good team. We've justified that they're good. Then when you beat them, you've shown that you've beaten some of the better teams in the world. The fact that you beat someone who we all think could be good is irrelevant, especially since you're using the same logic of Gambit could be good. So this comment had 62 points. And it was in the thread about Vega Squadron. Let me have a look. think it was the one about... Oh, it was about Immortals making the final by beating Vega Squadron, Na'vi, Flipside, and then winning a best of 3 against Virtus Pro. And this guy, 62 points, says, keep trying to take the credit away. They can only win against the opponents they are matched. FaZe got this same F3, but lost instead. Right, first of all, keep trying to take the credit away. No. He's trying to give them exactly the credit they are due by analysing the context of who they beat. So, do you think Cloud9 were the second best team in the world for placing second at ESL 1 Cologne? No, because you'd immediately go, well, look who they played in the bracket, and also FaZe was probably the second best team, and they were on the other side of the bracket. They had to play SK earlier. The bracket was randomly drawn in terms of that component, and it could have been either of them playing, but it happened to go that particular way. So the bracket meant that you didn't get the second best team in the final. Also, you know what? If Na'Vi hadn't beaten G2, who knows if they would have been able to beat G2 in the semi-finals at that point in time? Seems like it would have been a good matchup. Also, one tournament doesn't make you the second best in the world. Oh, no, sorry, mate, stop taking credit away. Oh, wait, you weren't. You were adding context that actually elucidated the point and helped us reasonably and rationally evaluate who the team are. Maybe you should shut the fuck up. Then it says they can only win against the opponents they're matched. Why bring that up? If you think it's taking credit away to point out context, why then point out a worse version of the same context that you can only beat who you're matched against? Yes, and who you're matched against shows how well you played. It doesn't matter that you finished second if you were actually only playing teams that were outside of the top 8. That doesn't show that you were the second best team. FaZe got the same F3 but lost instead. Wait a minute, why are you taking credit away? Why have you brought up who someone played? Why not just go FaZe lost? FaZe lost and Immortals won, therefore Immortals is better than FaZe. Why not just say that? Why are you taking credit away, mate? Child. So I think we'll do this as the last one. It's in the same thread, 116 points. It says, I don't understand it. Technically, there's only the best teams in the major. No. Stop you right there. There's only the teams that were able to qualify. Doesn't mean they're the best. One tournament, which is what a qualifier is, doesn't make you the best or the worst. But let's continue. To be in the major in a final, to be in the major final in a deserved way, you need to beat Astralis, SK, FaZe, and G2 in best of 5. Notice how he has to make it ridiculous. So what tournament in history have you ever played best of 5 in every round and you had to beat like basically the top 4 teams in a row? Never happened, right? Whenever people have to make it the most ridiculous example, they probably don't have a point. Now this guy says, it's not their fault the teams we considered the best prior to this tournament all suck dick. They technically faced the best teams in the world. No, they didn't. Did they face Astralis? No. Do you know any expert who would say Astralis wasn't a top 4 team at this tournament? I don't. But you know why Immortals didn't face Astralis? They were on the other side of the bracket. So Immortals faced the team who beat Astralis, but they didn't face Astralis. Did Immortals beat SK? Almost inarguably the best team in the world? No. Now, is that because SK isn't good enough? No. It's because SK played the second best team in the playoffs. Astralis lost to them. And Astralis lost to Gambit, second or third best team in the playoffs. Therefore, Immortals never had to play SK. Does that make Immortals better than SK in this tournament? No. You see, it's not their fault that teams we considered best all suck dick. They didn't suck dick. They were on the other side of the bracket. Remember, when the bracket draw is done, there's a randomizing element as to who plays who. Remember, the chances of SK playing Astralis was like 1 in 3. So it's more likely that they wouldn't have played each other. And if they wouldn't have played each other, maybe one of them would have played Immortals. Maybe one of them would have been on the Immortals side of the play. So purely less than a coin flip, a 1 in 3 chance meant that Immortals never got to play the better teams. Not like, as you say, that like you make it sound like it was always going to be this way, and they beat all the best teams that were available. Absolutely ludicrous way of thinking about it. Provably false in every respect.